Where the woods begin. They were last seen on the edge of the woods. A mother, a boyfriend, 2 small children, and then nothing. Just the sound of wind in the trees, and silence. That kind of silence that never feels empty. That kind of silence that feels deliberate. Jack Sullivan was just 5. His little sister Lily, only 3. Too small to vanish on their own. Too innocent to understand what was coming. They lived in an RV, parked on the fringes of a forest in British Columbia. Not a campground, not a trailer park, just an RV, tucked where the trees start to thicken, where the grass dies and the shadows lengthen, where eyes can watch from a distance and no one would ever know. Their mother, Mallayia Brooks Murray, was there. So was her boyfriend, Daniel Martel. There were no signs of forced entry, no screams reported, no Amber Alert ever issued. And yet, Jack and Lily were gone. If this story already chills you, don't walk away.
Subscribe.
Because these stories can't just be consumed, they need to be carried. Or comment below. Tell us why you wouldn't subscribe. But don't just scroll by like they never existed. The Vanishing. On the surface, it didn't start with alarm bells. No breaking headlines. No missing posters plastered across town. In fact, the first few days, barely anyone knew the children were missing. Because no one reported them missing. Not the mother. Not the boyfriend. Not the police. It was only when the children's grandmother, Belinda Gray, realized she hadn't heard from them that she began asking questions. But every call she made went unanswered. Every message left ignored. When she reached out to Daniel, she was met with silence. When she asked Mallayia where the kids were, there was no reply. Not anger, not fear, just nothing. Belinda had always spoken highly of her former daughter-in-law. She once called her a great mom. But that changed quickly when she sensed something was wrong. And not just wrong, horribly wrong. She went to the RCMP, asked them to look into it. But weeks passed. There were no public statements, no press conferences, no formal investigation announced. Nothing that said, 2 children are gone, and we are looking for them. That silence, it became its own kind of scream. A family already broken. Cody Sullivan, the children's biological father, hadn't seen them in 3 years. After his relationship with Mallayia collapsed, so did his life.
Drugs.
Alcohol. Homelessness. A man already drowning when his children vanished from shore. His mother, Belinda, said Cody was devastated. Even in his silence. Even in his absence. But Cody didn't speak out publicly. He didn't appear on camera. He didn't beg the world for help. Instead, it was Belinda who carried the burden. Her voice became the one pleading for answers. Pleading for someone, anyone, to care that her grandchildren had disappeared without a trace. She started connecting dots the police never publicly mentioned. The quiet withdrawal of Mallayia. The bizarre deflections from Daniel. The photo. Because not long after the children disappeared, a picture surfaced of Mallayia on a beach. Smiling. Not a hint of grief. No anguish in her eyes. Just a young woman, hair down, sun shining, while her children were nowhere to be found. The internet exploded. How could a mother smile when her children are missing? Theories bloomed. Accusations flew. But still, Mallayia said nothing. Not one word to the public. Not even to her family. Daniel's shifting story. At first, Daniel Martel appeared cooperative. He gave interviews. He answered questions. But it wasn't long before his credibility started to crumble. In one interview, he talked about the children but rarely said their names. He spoke in generalities, as if he was remembering a dream, not a life. He later admitted he had lied during the initial investigation. He said it was to protect Mallayia. Protect her from what, though? He never said. He ignored Belinda's messages, dodged her calls. And when the pressure grew, Daniel made a sudden pivot. He announced he was stepping away from Mallayia, that he would be focusing on Meadow, her youngest daughter, who was still in his care. 2 children vanished. 1 left behind. 1 he still had. The others? He stopped speaking about them entirely. A timeline that doesn't add up. Daniel's mother, Janie Martel, eventually came forward. She described sounds she heard on the morning of the disappearance, things she saw, noises she couldn't forget. She gave everything to the RCMP, and according to her, the timeline supported Daniel's story. But if that's true, where were Jack and Lily?
No one had seen them.
No one could prove they'd been anywhere after that day. And the only people who might have known what happened weren't talking. The RCMP remained silent, not even confirming if there was a case to investigate. And yet, 2 children, still missing. If you're still watching, you're feeling something. A chill, a tug in your gut, maybe rage. That's what this story does.
So subscribe.
Or explain in the comments why you think it's better not to. But don't just close this tab like they never lived, like they never laughed, like they never mattered. The questions begin. Belinda's voice grew louder. Her suspicions sharpened. She began to speak about postpartum depression, about fear, about what happens when young mothers are left unsupported, unheard. But she still insisted. She didn't believe Mallayia could hurt the children.
Not like that.
Others weren't so sure. Enter Darren Geddes, a distant relative with a bold claim. Mallayia knows exactly what happened. And she's not talking. His statement would split the family, fracture what little trust remained, and ignite a theory no one wanted to say aloud. That Jack and Lily might still be alive.
Hidden.
Protected. Or taken. That's where we go next.
And you?
You should be with us for it. Subscribe now, if you haven't already. Because the next part of the story doesn't just twist. It burns. A family torn from the inside. When children go missing, families are supposed to unite. Grief usually has one language, pain. But in this case, the voices didn't blend. They clashed. And every person who spoke only deepened the fracture. Every truth told seemed to birth a new lie. This wasn't just a disappearance. It became a war of silence, of suspicion, of blood turning against blood. And the deeper you looked, the more you realized. This family was already broken. Long before Jack and Lily vanished. You're still here. That means this story has grabbed your heart. Or maybe your throat. Don't stay silent.
Subscribe.
If you won't, drop a comment explaining why you'd let this story pass without response. Either way, don't disappear like they did. The mother who didn't call. The first truth no one could shake was this. Mallayia never reported her children missing. Not once did she dial 911. Not once did she go on camera. Not once did she ask the public for help. And when people asked why, there was no answer. Just a haunting stillness. That beach photo, her smiling, barefoot, carefree, sent shockwaves across the internet. People wanted to believe there was a reasonable explanation. Maybe it was old. Maybe it was taken before they vanished. But it wasn't. It was recent. Days after the last confirmed sighting of Jack and Lily. No mother should be judged solely on a single photo. But when that photo is the only communication you give the world after your children disappear, it doesn't just raise suspicion. It raises rage. Belinda, the grandmother who won't let go. While the world speculated, Belinda Gray stayed focused. She didn't care about social media. She wasn't chasing clout. She was chasing answers. Belinda had once admired Mallayia, said she was attentive, loving.
But now?
That trust had curdled into suspicion. She couldn't understand why Mallayia wouldn't call her back. Why Daniel wouldn't reply. Why no one would just say the words she needed to hear. The kids are safe. Instead, all she had were memories. Jack's laugh. Lily's tiny hands. Their toys still sitting in her home, untouched. A birthday passed. No candles lit. She spoke with calm fury in interviews. She said things others were too afraid to. What if they're dead? What if they're not? Either way, we deserve to know. The children deserve to be found. She wasn't out for vengeance. She was out for truth. But she wasn't alone in that pursuit. Darren Geddes, the voice no one wanted. Then came Darren Geddes, a distant cousin. Not close to Belinda. Not really close to Mallayia. But suddenly very loud. Darren took a public stand. Said he had information others didn't. Said he knew who was responsible. At first, he pointed the finger at Daniel. said he didn't trust him, that Daniel's early interviews were dodgy, that his protectiveness over Mallayia was suspect. But 3 weeks into his personal investigation, Darren changed course. He said he'd spoken with people connected to the case, some with ties to law enforcement, others tied to the land. And then he made a stunning claim. I believe Mallayia knows exactly where the children are, and I believe they're alive. Alive? It wasn't what people expected. Not dead, not abandoned, not trafficked, but hidden. And according to Darren, they were being protected by members of the indigenous community, hidden in plain sight, far from systems that had already failed them. That theory earned him enemies. People accused him of spreading misinformation, of stirring up racial tensions, of exploiting a tragedy. But Darren didn't back down. I'm saying what no one else will. The mother knows. And until she talks, those kids don't come home. The boyfriends escape. While Darren made noise, Daniel Martel faded. He stopped giving interviews, said he wanted to protect his peace. Focus on Meadow, Mallayya's youngest daughter, the one child still with him. It was a quiet move. Some saw it as maturity. Others saw it as cowardice. He admitted he'd lied during early interviews, said it was to protect Mallayia. But again, protect her from what? Daniel claimed he had nothing to hide, that the timeline cleared him, that his mother, Janie Martel, had confirmed his version of events. But then why was he the only adult who'd been living with Jack and Lily and yet couldn't say where they were? Daniel's silence began to echo Mallayya's. And 2 silent adults in one case? That doesn't sit well with anyone, especially when children are missing. Janie Martel breaks her silence. Daniel's mother had remained silent for weeks. But eventually, Janie Martel spoke. She described the sounds she heard the morning Jack and Lily were last seen. Footsteps. Voices. An argument? She wasn't sure. She said it was early, before sunrise. But she also said something chilling. I didn't see the children that morning, but I heard something.
A door.
Then nothing. Janie said she told the RCMP everything. She believed her son was innocent. But even she admitted, there are things I don't understand. Her account supported Daniel's rough timeline, but not his innocence. Because time alone doesn't clear you. And without evidence, all anyone had were stories.
Conflicting. Cracked.
Incomplete. A community without trust. As the family fractured, the public began to splinter, too. Some defended Mallayia. Said postpartum depression can devastate a mother's ability to cope. Said judgment without understanding is just cruelty in disguise. Others said there's a line, and she crossed it the moment she stayed silent. Social media sleuths took sides. Some accused Daniel. Others called Darren a liar. Some even blamed Belinda, saying maybe she was twisting the story for attention. And through it all, the RCMP said nothing. No press conference. No arrests. No plea for information. Just silence. That silence? It became louder than any scream. If you're still watching, it's because you care. If you've made it this far and haven't subscribed, ask yourself why. If you believe these children matter, subscribe. If not, tell us why in the comments. But don't be passive. The fracture. This wasn't just a case of missing children. It was a collapse. A mother who won't speak. A father broken and absent. A boyfriend distancing himself. A grandmother screaming into the void. A cousin cast out for his truth. And somewhere between them, 2 children who haven't been seen in over a year. No confirmed sightings. No confirmed deaths. Just 2 names. Jack and Lily. And one terrible question. What happened in that RV at the edge of the woods? Next, we'll enter the silence. The one that speaks louder than words. Because it's not what Mallayia said that haunts people. It's what she never did.
Don't leave now. Subscribe.
This story is far from over. Silence can mean peace. But in true crime, silence is rarely innocent. Sometimes it's protection. Other times, it's guilt. But most dangerously, silence can become a kind of weapon. One that wounds everyone looking for truth. In the disappearance of Jack and Lily Sullivan, silence hasn't been a pause between answers. It has been the answer. This isn't just about a mother who won't speak. It's about a system that won't explain, a community that won't unite, a mystery screaming through the gaps of everything unsaid. You've made it this far. That means you're not just a viewer. You're part of the few who care enough to dig deeper. So do what matters. Subscribe now. If you don't, drop your reason in the comments. Tell us why silence is your choice, when silence is the very thing hurting this case. Law enforcement's long pause. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, took the lead on this investigation from day one. And then they said almost nothing. There was no detailed timeline released. No press conferences to update the public. No list of suspects. No appeals to the public for help in locating Jack and Lily. For the families, this wasn't just frustrating, it was maddening. Imagine losing 2 children. Then imagine the one group with power to help you refuses to talk. Belinda Gray begged for information. Darren Geddes demanded action. But weeks turned to months. And the RCMP? They kept quiet. That silence gave birth to something toxic. Speculation. Online sleuths filled the void. People desperate to help, or to be seen helping, started building timelines based on assumptions, not evidence. And in that chaos, theories became weapons. Theories, accusations, and ghosts. Some said the kids had been sold. Others claimed they were taken by human traffickers. A few believed they'd been killed in the RV and their bodies buried somewhere remote. But the most explosive theory came from Darren Geddes. The children were alive, hidden intentionally. His theory was more than just a wild guess. Darren claimed to have sources, people connected to the RCMP, others from the indigenous community. He believed that Jack and Lily were living off-grid, kept away from law enforcement, away from danger, maybe even away from the systems that had already failed them. It sounded like a fairy tale at first, but the more he spoke, the more attention he got. Because he wasn't saying the kids are gone. He was saying they're still here. But not everyone welcomed this theory. Some indigenous leaders were angered by the implication. They said it fed into old, harmful stereotypes, suggesting that indigenous communities would harbor children illegally, even with good intent. Darren insisted he was speaking from respect, not accusation. He said, "If they're out there and safe, I'm thankful. But the law has to be part of this, too. We can't find peace unless we know." And the RCMP? Still no comment. A mother's vanishing words. All the while, Mallayia Brooks Murray maintained her silence. No interviews. No statements. No visible signs of distress. And that silence became a story of its own. People asked, was it shame? Was she advised legally to keep quiet? Was she mentally unwell? Or was she simply hiding something she couldn't explain? Her own cousin, Darren, began to suggest what others had only whispered. I believe she orchestrated this. Maybe not alone, but I believe she knows where the kids are. And I believe she thinks she did the right thing. That last line, she thinks she did the right thing, echoed online. Because suddenly, the question wasn't what happened. It was, what if she believed this was her only option? Could a mother break the law to protect her kids from something worse? A father in the shadows. Cody Sullivan, Jack and Lily's biological father, was almost invisible throughout the investigation. He had lost custody years ago due to addiction. Hadn't seen the children in 3 years. And yet, according to his mother Belinda, the disappearance devastated him. But he didn't come forward. No interviews. No online statements. Grief can silence people. So can guilt. But silence in this case became dangerous currency. Every person who stayed quiet gave fuel to someone else's theory. Belinda defended him, saying he was sick, yes, but he loved them, and he's not the reason they're gone. Yet the internet didn't agree. Every silent family member became suspect. Everyone had an opinion, and every opinion pushed the truth further into darkness. The public turns on itself. As weeks passed and no arrests were made, the case transformed from tragedy to battleground. People weren't just choosing sides. They were attacking each other over them. Some accused Belinda of being too emotional. Others said Darren was making it about himself. Some said Daniel was the scapegoat. Others swore he was the key. Facebook groups formed, then splintered. Reddit threads exploded. TikToks analyzing Mallayya's smile on the beach photo went viral, then disappeared. The case wasn't just cold. It was radioactive. And in the middle of all that noise, 2 children were still gone. 2 tiny voices, lost in the echo chamber. When the world stops listening. What happens when a case stops trending? What happens when people stop sharing, stop speculating, stop caring? That's what Belinda fears every day. She keeps their pictures close. She lights candles. She posts online when no one else will. She doesn't want to be famous. She wants to be finished. She wants an answer, any answer, that will let her bury her fear. She said in one interview, "If they're gone, tell me. If they're safe, let me see them. I don't need revenge. I need peace." But peace doesn't come when no one talks. It doesn't come from silence. And yet, silence is all this case has. Breaking the silence starts with you. So what now? The family is fractured. The public is exhausted. The police are still tight-lipped. And the children? We don't know. We don't know if they're alive or dead. We don't know if they were taken or hidden. We don't even know if they ever left that RV. We only know that the world has moved on. And that's the tragedy within the tragedy. Don't be part of that silence.
Subscribe now.
If you don't, at least say why in the comments. Explain how we can raise our voices for children if we won't even speak for them here. Because silence didn't protect Jack and Lily. It only made them disappear again. Every disappearance has a before. A moment when life still feels normal, routine, almost forgettable. But in hindsight, every word, every glance, every step can take on new meaning. In this case, it's those final footsteps, the ones that led Jack and Lily Sullivan into silence, that hold the weight of everything. If you've made it this far, you're not just a passive viewer. You're invested. You care. So don't disappear on them now. Subscribe to this channel. Show that your voice won't vanish like theirs did. And if you won't, comment below. Tell us why the silence continues. A morning like any other. It was a chilly spring morning in rural British Columbia. The RV that held their small family sat at the edge of a wooded area, half hidden by trees, parked in a space that didn't feel quite like home, but wasn't exactly foreign either. Inside were 4 people. Mallayia Brooks Murray, the mother. Daniel Martel, her boyfriend. Jack, age 6. Lily, age 4. And their baby sister, Meadow, barely a year old. It was cramped, but they managed. Life in an RV isn't glamorous. It's survival. Daniel later said that morning felt normal. But that word, normal, can become a smokescreen. Because something happened, and by the time anyone realized it, Jack and Lily were gone. The witness, no one noticed. Entered Janie Martel, Daniel's mother. She lived nearby and had stopped by the RV that morning like she often did. She said she remembered strange things that day.
The sounds of movement outside the RV.
The baby crying. A door opening, then slamming shut. But she didn't see Jack or Lily. That was the last time anyone may have heard them. She later shared her memories with the RCMP. Quietly, carefully. She didn't want to stir more trouble. But to Darren Geddes, her testimony confirmed something chilling. That the children were likely already gone when most people assumed they were still there. That the timeline, already foggy, might be built on false assumptions. Daniel's version. Daniel spoke publicly soon after. He said Mallayia was distraught, disoriented, in no state to talk. But he was. At first, his tone was defensive. He didn't mention the kids by name. He seemed more interested in protecting Mallayya's reputation than begging for the children's return. He later admitted, under pressure, that he lied during early interviews. He said he was trying to protect her from public attack. He claimed he believed the kids were safe. That Mallayia had made arrangements for them to be cared for. That she hadn't told him because she didn't trust anyone. He said, "I didn't know where they went. I just believed she was trying to keep them away from something worse." But worse than what? Addiction? Poverty? The foster system? We never got a clear answer. A mother's vanishing point. Mallayia didn't speak. Not publicly. Not privately. She stopped communicating with her own family. Cut ties with Belinda. Ghosted Darren. Ignored texts, calls, messages. And then came the photo. Mallayia. At the beach. Smiling. A stranger snapped it and uploaded it. It went viral. The internet reacted with fury. What mother smiles like that with 2 kids missing? She knows more. She doesn't care.
But we don't know what that smile meant.
Maybe it was forced. Maybe it was a mask. Or maybe it was relief, if she truly believed they were safe. But the timing, it shook everyone, especially the people still searching. The last contact. No one has confirmed the exact moment Jack and Lily were last seen by someone outside the family. There are no surveillance cameras from the RV. No phone pings tracing a route. No receipts, no witnesses, no cries for help. They simply disappeared. And every person involved has a slightly different version of what came next. Daniel says Mallayia became distant, then collapsed emotionally. Belinda says no one contacted her until days later. Darren claims his inside sources told him the children had been relocated, but not abducted. All those versions might contain pieces of truth. But none of them explain what happened between sunrise and silence. The cliff where truth fell off. By now, public opinion had divided into 2 camps. The Daniel theory, that Daniel had snapped under pressure, harmed the children, and covered it up with Mallayya's silence. The Mallayia theory, that she had planned everything, possibly with help from someone, and hidden the children from danger, real or imagined. But there was a third theory, a darker one. Whispers of postpartum psychosis. That Mallayia, unwell and unsupported, may have acted impulsively, irrationally, tragically. Belinda didn't believe it. She said, Mallayia loved those kids. She'd never hurt them. But I think she was scared. And maybe she thought the world was scarier than we knew. No evidence has ever supported foul play. No remains have been found. No items, no shoes, no toys, no blankets were ever recovered. It was like they evaporated. What if we missed it? Here's the part that haunts. What if the moment of truth already happened? What if someone did see them but didn't realize the significance? What if the last clue was already overlooked, dismissed as irrelevant? True crime doesn't always resolve with fingerprints and confessions. Sometimes it ends in confusion, missteps, and a silence that slowly hardens into myth. Jack and Lily Sullivan didn't vanish because they were invisible. They vanished because the world didn't notice the moment it mattered. And maybe we still don't.
Be the witness now.
Don't scroll past the story. Don't treat these children like old news. If you've stayed with us this far, you care.
Subscribe now.
Not for views. Not for vanity. For visibility. Because the more people see this story, the more likely it is someone remembers something. The more pressure builds on those keeping secrets. And if you won't subscribe, then say it. Say it in the comments. Own that silence. Let others ask why. Don't just be a bystander in their final footsteps.
Be the voice that still walks with them.
Time is supposed to bring clarity. But in this story, time has done the opposite. It's layered confusion over grief, wrapped silence around every fact, and left a family shattered in slow motion. Years have now passed since Jack and Lily Sullivan were last seen. No arrests. No solid leads. No closure. And yet, hope still lingers like a ghost no one can exorcise. If this case has moved you even a little, don't stay silent now.
Subscribe. For them.
For every child whose name fades faster than it should. And if you won't, write it down below. Tell us why you'd walk away. Let others feel your silence echo. Fractured families, frozen time. Inside this case lies a deeper tragedy, the implosion of a family. Belinda Gray, the grandmother, has never stopped searching. She attends vigils, updates missing person pages, tries to hold the family name together even as it tears apart. Cody Sullivan, the biological father, remains quiet, overcome by addiction, regret, or grief. It's hard to tell. He hasn't made public statements in years. Daniel Martell now cares for Meadow, the youngest child, the one who didn't vanish. He's distanced himself from Mallayia. He says he's focused on the child who remains. But his past lies still cloud every word. And Mallayia? She remains the most elusive figure. No interviews, no public apology, no visible breakdown or plea, just nothing. To this day, she has never spoken the names Jack or Lily in a press conference, public appeal, or recorded message. It's a silence many see as guilt, others as trauma. But either way, it is a silence that hurts more than words ever could. Darren Geddes and the Unseen Path. One man refuses to stop talking. Darren Geddes, a second cousin to Mallayia, took it upon himself to challenge the silence. He's given interviews, written open letters, even appeared on podcasts. His theory? That the children are alive, hidden, protected by members of the indigenous community, people who, he believes, feared government intervention and stepped in secretly. It's not unheard of. There are historical cases, rooted in real mistrust between indigenous families and social services, where children were quietly protected, undocumented but safe. Darren believes he has inside information, but he can't reveal sources. And for many, it's not enough. Hope is beautiful, Belinda once said in a rare interview, but it's also dangerous, because it keeps you waiting for a door that may never open. Still, Darren insists.
They're not dead, he says.
They were taken in. They're being raised. And they will come back. Whether that's truth or self-preservation, no one knows. The community's cold case. Public trust in the RCMP began to erode almost immediately after the disappearance. There were few press conferences, no named suspects, no detailed updates. At one point, people online did more investigating than the police. Amateur sleuths mapped RV locations, cross-referenced social media activity, tracked the movement of family members through old photos. But it all amounted to noise. The kind of noise that frustrates more than it solves. The RCMP never confirmed if foul play was suspected. They never publicly cleared or named anyone as a person of interest. Some say they know more than they've said. Others say they simply failed. But silence from both the law and the family has become the loudest part of this case. And the children? That's the part that matters most. The part that so often gets lost. Jack was 6 years old. He loved cartoons and drawing. He had a stubborn streak, his grandmother said. Protective of Lily. A little warrior. Lily was 4. Soft-spoken. Always followed Jack. Always smiling. She was the kind of child you'd notice once, and then miss forever. They didn't choose to disappear. They didn't choose for their story to become speculation. They were just children. Born into a storm they didn't create. Taken somehow, somewhere, out of sight. And we, the public, were handed a riddle instead of answers. The questions that haunt. Where were they last seen by someone trustworthy? Why did Mallayia go silent? Why did Daniel lie? Why didn't law enforcement act faster? Why did no one notice the moment they vanished? Why did no one speak their names when it mattered most? And the question that crushes everything else. Are Jack and Lily still alive? If you're still here, if you've listened to this story until now, it means you care. It means this case stayed with you in ways the world failed to do.
So do something about it.
Subscribe to this channel. Not to follow content. Not for true crime curiosity. But because your action is visibility. Your click is pressure. Your attention is power. If you believe Jack and Lily deserve answers, then be part of the noise that demands them. And if you won't subscribe, explain that. Out loud. In the comments. Let people read your silence. Let others hold that weight. Because too many people stayed silent in this story already. Jack and Lily Sullivan were not statistics. They were not just the missing kids in that RV case. They were human beings. They had favorite songs, favorite toys, dreams that had only just begun to form. And now they are the center of a mystery so tangled, so emotionally raw, it's become more than a case. It's a wound. Still open. Still bleeding. And until the truth is known, until someone speaks the words that matter, the only thing we can do is refuse to forget. Thank you for following Jack and Lily's story to the end. If this case moved you, hit like and subscribe. We have more stories that deserve to be heard. Stories of people who deserve voices long after the world has gone quiet. Share your thoughts. Share your feelings. And most of all, share your theory.
Because someone out there knows something.
And the silence? It's already lasted too long.